Yeah.
Hello, good to see you. Vaughn Grant, nice to see you. Wow. My brother I was telling you about is going to be a very happy man as well. It's in Chattanooga, we don't have it. Well, my studio's upstairs if you'd like to head up there. I was really bad at math. And so, I mean, and I was like, kids would they would paint the numbers for the prices on grocery store signs.
Do you remember that first thing that you drew as a child?
My high school teacher had introduced me to my mentor, who then invited me to come and print.
How do you conceive the idea? How do you then put on a canvas or
Because it's more personal to me.
You have any formal education before you went to Italy or in art or?
Favorite books was Breaking the Rules of Watercolor.
So what are the key techniques you use for your drawings or your painting?
What the hell are you doing? And he goes, man, if you're gonna be in this business, find a hobby. And so I was like, all right.
And giving you another opportunity. Spill out.
Yeah. My low moments have definitely been a battle with alcoholism.
In life, we meet many people. We share moments, exchange words, and sometimes something deeper happens. A connection, a story, a spark that stays with you. Every now and then you meet someone whose journey leaves a lasting impression. You find yourself wanting to know more and wishing the world could hear their story too. A story of struggle and success, a story of passion, creativity, and inspiration. That's exactly what happened when I met Grant at the Ann Arbor Art Fair in Michigan. His artwork caught my eye, but it was his story that truly moved me. And that's what brought us today in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I'm very happy to share that story with you. The story behind the canvas, behind the colors, behind the artist. So let's meet Grant Wood. So Brian, thank you very much for inviting us. Since we have met at Ann Arbor Art Fair, and I have been looking forward for this meeting.
Me too.
So appreciate that. So tell me about your childhood memories, that how you got into this artistic life, how it started, if you have especially remember anything in your childhood that you were working on and you figure out, this is I love it and I need to do it.
Yeah. When we were growing up, being from a family where, like, my uncle was an illustrator and my father was my parents owned a graphic design agency. We'd always my sister played a lot of sports, so she traveled a lot, and we would go down and spend time with my Uncle John, the illustrator. And in that, like, he always had notebooks and things and pencils lying around, and he would always be drawing, and so you would kind of just kind of pick it up, or I don't know, want to fit in, I guess, like, show him you can do it too, or whatever. But I just fell in love with drawing his dogs because I always had a lot of dogs that were lying around, and the personality of the dogs. But he had a lot of people that would come visit him from, like, all walks of life, and I would draw them as they would talk. And so it was sort of eye-opening in the way that him being an illustrator and to kind of fall upon it naturally and just kind of everyday casuality sort of enticed me, and then I was really bad at math. And so, I mean, and I was like, can't play golf.
Obviously, it's obvious you are in art business and
yeah. So I was like, if it's natural, just take the natural course. But I have met some great people along the way, and it's just, once you've kind of experienced and delved into the life of painting with people or traveling with people and getting to know people wherever you go, it becomes much more about kind of the resonance of what I was doing as a child and painting the people that would come and visit my uncle. And so that's essentially what I work on, and concepts that kind of entwine with that. And a lot of concepts that I work on are personal to me. And whereas, like, when I see a little vignette or something, it becomes personal, and I want to,
Yeah.
I just like want to study the texture and the nature of it.
It seems
Yeah.
like your first introduction to art was through your Uncle John.
Yes.
And you have mentioned multiple times as well. So tell us about him a little bit.
I think that when they were younger, they were very poor, and so they used art. Like, they would, as kids, they would paint the numbers for the prices on grocery store signs. And so they then kind of graduated onto a career at a newspaper or whatever. And I think what inspired me was his sensitivity to the world, and his sense of naturalism, and the way he lived his life in that way. And in that, how in tune he was with just kind of the rhythms beyond what we see.
Do you remember that first thing that you drew as a child? You have any memories of that?
It was his Rottweiler. I think
Okay.
I was like 4 years old.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It had a big like knot on its cranium. And so I loved it.
So going to school, again in your childhood, any specific teacher or anything that inspired you from the school side?
Yeah, I think going to school, because when I made a transition from high school to college, I was on the verge of my high school teacher had introduced me to my mentor, who then invited me to become apprentice in his studio.
You have any formal education before you went to Italy or in art, or how that
Yeah, so actually these sculptures right here, the gray ones,
on that side?
those are 9-foot sculptures of the seasons down in Chattanooga, and they're ones that Dow did. And so in high school, I just took high school classes, but I had always been drawing with my uncle. But going to Dowd's studio, he then introduced me to the classical Russian technique and
Okay.
pushed me towards learning that, because that's how he was trained. And so he was working on these sculptures, and then a foundation came in who was funding the project of the sculptures, and they were like, would you like to go to Florence for a year? And so I then learned I didn't learn it, but I was introduced to it, the technique in Florence.
Okay. So you went to Italy during your university years, or once you completed your university, or when did you go to?
I took a gap. Like, I went to UTC for 1 year. I then took a year to go to Florence, and then I came back, and
And you got the scholarship for Florence.
yes, yeah.
Okay. So how was the experience? Obviously the do you know any Italian or?
Well, that was the thing, is my brother speaks Italian.
Okay.
And so we got there, and it was very easy because he was there for the first few days. And so I
Okay.
was like, I got this.
Okay.
And I didn't have it, but it was definitely a learning experience, and it was definitely a good kind of growing moment.
So the way of communication, even in the schools, there is Italian, I believe.
Well,
Or
this one, because it's an American academy.
okay, international school.
Yeah. It's funny because it was once one academy, and somebody, his name's Cessna de Cosmo, he's a sculptor, grew up with my mom. He founded the Italian branch of that academy, and then that academy split. And so I went to one of the sides of the academy, but this is where art and politics and, and education just don't get along.
So how did you find the cultural difference between Italy, Florence, hub of art, and here from US? What is the difference? Did you realize that?
The Especially being as young as I was, the convenience of living here versus living alone in a place like Florence,
Yeah.
where you might get lucky if call the police and they show up. And so it was just like it was a fun, freeing moment, but the curriculum was definitely what I like. It was very stringent and you had to work hard. And so I got along with that aspect of it.
So is there any specific type of art that you learned there, or it was just general stuff?
So it's basically a technique developed by the French École in the 19th century. And they sort of revamped it because it's a kind of a systematic way to learn classical realism. And so you go there and you learn how to, draw objects or copy artist drawings until you kind of get a hand for it. And so that's where I liked studying with Dowd, because he paints everything. But it was funny, this lady came up to me and she said the reason why I like his paintings is because he paints everything, but you can always tell he's painted it. And that's the trick,
Yeah.
and that's the hard part. And so finding that like subtlety and style that people, you have like academics frowning at you for doing such things. And so you have that in the back of your mind. And so you're kind of having these constant battles in the back of your mind, but at the same time, you have to let yourself do it
Yeah.
to, own it.
So how do you define or describe your style of painting? You know, do you do everything, or you have specific that you have more attraction towards that, or
Yeah, I think when I was living in England, I was living on the coast, and so I would watch the fog come in, and I kind of grew a love for finding these echoes in the fog and seeing these water vapor and just watching it overwhelm a space and then just vanish. And so I think when I'm painting in my studio, I like to try and capture that feeling.
so you wanted to bring that atmosphere inside the studio?
Yes, yeah, because it's more personal to me. And I think that if I'm painting a studio painting, it should be personal.
So what are the key techniques you use for your drawings or your paintings?
Um, right now I'm using mostly oil, but I also use like a mixed media of watercolor and gouache,
Okay.
and sometimes gold leaf and like sepia and charcoal, and more or less like traditional mediums. Um, just because I just like the feeling of
Texture or the feeling.
yeah. It's sort of why I like to paint objects and things. I just like to touch things.
How do you conceive the idea? How do you then put on a canvas or on a paper? And how do you complete the project?
Sometimes, so that's a great, because I often, when I have, as they call like writer's block, I'm like, why did that one come so, it was so easy to me. And I find that if I've kind of sat on an idea until I really, really want to paint it, then it comes more easily to me. But when you're approaching a more complex idea or subject matter, I always you start with like thumbnail sketches like this big, and and then you just
Keep
get
expanding
bigger.
it.
Yeah, and then it's sort of like practicing in Italy, like you're training your hand to feel the composition, and so you do color studies if you want to map the color before you begin the project, but often I just start directly.
Obviously, for an artist, just like every painting is like his child. So, is there any specific painting you want to show us that you like the most, and why is that? What is the story behind it?
I think honestly it might be this one, and I think because it was accidental, but it achieved everything I wanted to in a moment rather than having to kind of slave over it. Because underneath it was a still life of my easel, and I just didn't want to work on it anymore. So I flipped it upside down, and I'd been reading a lot about the Gilded Age and the working conditions of the children. And so I just wanted to sketch it out.
Sometimes you feel that you love to paint it, this painting, but sometimes there is a struggle, there is a hurdle or a block that you feel that okay, I don't know how to resolve this, and how to put that motions into that. How is that?
It's sort of like when I was saying earlier, like you understand all the rules, but one of my Uncle John's favorite books was Breaking the Rules of Watercolor, because watercolors have these very like classical rules that they abide by. And in that, you're always constantly fighting a battle, like, and as I was just saying, like you can't realize your full potential until you let go of all of this convoluted, it's like having the news on 24 hours a day in your head. But I think too, it's those moments that, like I was saying, that like when a painting just happens, it's those moments that it's like I
Just
played a lot of golf, and like you could hit every shot of your round bad but one, and it's that one that brings you back. And so it's that feeling after it happens of elation.
so let me ask you this way, maybe if you're stuck somewhere, did you go out for golfing, or did you go out in the nature, or how do
Yeah,
you overcome that, or maybe calm down yourself and start rethinking about it?
yeah, that you definitely find. But Cessna, who I was talking about, told me when I was younger, because he was outside of, he had a studio, it was in a warehouse downtown, and he would always hit a tennis ball against the wall with his dog chasing it back and forth. And one day I was like, Sass, what the hell are you doing? And he goes, man, if you're going to be in this business, find a hobby.
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right. So anything I can do to, like, distract me from the frustration if something's not going well, helps.
You mentioned that you spent some time in UK as well. So, what took you there?
Where I lived was down in Kent, down on the coast, and what took me there was in Florence. I met a girl named Phoebe who is a portrait painter, and I moved there, and I painted landscapes, and she was painting portraits, and then I came back. It just didn't work out.
Okay. So, how long did you stay in London?
For like 5 years.
Any upcoming projects you're working on, that, or you're still cooking in your mind and you want to do still thinking to put on a canvas or on a paper?
Yeah, I've actually got a few. I love. I did this painting a while ago, and I love Rodin. He did these burgers of Calais, and I like the idea of a frieze, and so I want to work with more of like a design oriented painting versus you know a more painterly involved painting. It's sort of fun to kind of play with that.
So, if I ask you what would be your dream project, or how do you define that?
Oh,
So, if you have something, okay, I need to do this.
I I don't know if I've met it yet.
Okay, political answer.
I was actually in Ann Arbor asked, and I don't think it was you who asked me this, but they asked if creativity is something that you're born with or if it's something that you kind of cultivate. And I think it's both because, as I was saying earlier, in this, especially in a contemporary society like ours, the self and kind of the sense of self can very much be deterred from the creative process and the creative mind because we're not allowed to do that. You know, I just grew up in a circumstance where my parents were like, "Yeah, that's normal."
Be normal.
Yeah, he's drawing dogs. It's fine.
Yeah.
At least he's not screaming.
So let me pull out you from the artist's work to the life. Life is always, it's a happy and sad moments. It never goes smooth or like this. It's always up and down. So if you like to share, it's up to you. Your high moments or your low moments, and what happened and how did you come out of those?
My low moments have definitely been a battle with alcoholism. And I'm coming out of that by seeking help from a therapist and going to meetings and doing this and doing the things that distract me when I need to be distracted from this, like gardening and walking and things like
So how
that.
you got into that habit, or I'm sure it's not a Phoebe's fault. So
No, no, no. I'm not quite sure because you can
okay,
blame it on genetics. I mean, I come
so
from a
it's
long
just
line of,
slowly.
yeah,
So there is no one incident that
people
triggered it. No.
genetically. It's talking about like that systematic practicing. My family's been practicing for a long time, and I just got a little carried away. But yeah, in that though, it is. That's where I do a lot of thinking about why it is I do what I do, and whether it does matter or you know a lot of people scoff at it, but at the same time it's what helps me understand things. So you know and just it's like I love Bob Dylan because he speaks in metaphors and I understand the world in metaphors, so I understand what he's talking about, and I like that. Because although I paint in kind of a semi-realistic way, seeing the realism for what it is a very hard truth. And I've, when you do this in solitude for a long time, you just like stare at the hard truth for a long time. And so, sometimes you just got to find your way out.
So let me ask you this thing. Being an artist, do you think you are a spiritual guy or you're a worldly person?
I think this is a question I have thought about a lot as well. I used to call myself a pagan, and in that I believe the gods are in everything. And I think too, reading a lot of poetry and listening to the cadence and rhythms of words, and then you listen to the cadence and rhythms of music. Like my therapist was the director of music at Disney. And so we have a lot of discussions about, there with music there's no invention of music. It was invented when the world became.
Yeah, when God created the universe. Yeah.
Yeah. And so in that, yeah, I would consider myself spiritual in that way. And I think too that's why I very much liked my Uncle John, because a lot of his spirituality was based on kind of naturalism, and doing a lot of plein air painting is just sort of like, going to a place of religion to practice, your appreciation for the bounty, as it were, as it is.
So this is your, family house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you born here, or
Yes.
you born here, you grew up here? So your parents are still alive, or?
My father, when I had gotten back from England, my father passed away
And
unexpectedly. And so
when was that?
in 2018.
Recently.
Yeah. And so that's sort of because he was always sort of my soundboard, and a lot of times my voice of reason. And so, yeah. It's been, that's sort of, I've been kind of playing around in the back of my mind with, or, how do you come to terms with the images that you can
Yep.
paint of that without them being, utterly concrete and like too, I don't know, straightforward, because it's not that straightforward. Yep. It's a lot of what this painting is about, and what I realized on the shorelines and looking at those generations of boats, aging in life.
Yeah. Melting away.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful illustration. Before I come to my last question, anything else you wanted to share? I'm giving you another opportunity. Spill out.
Yeah. No, no, it's just like one time when this is how the paintings would go with my uncle. So he had seen this PBS documentary on this man that moved to Alaska, and he had hand-hewn and fell all these trees, and he built his own cabin. So my uncle built a cabin like that, but for his studio for painting. And so that's where I grew up painting a lot. And so in it had little windows. And so he had a hammock drawn in it. He would just lay back.
Yeah.
And they weren't very good at like being supportive in their advice and stuff like that, but it was funny because they were funny about it. And so he would just kind of cuss me and telling me how like bad I was until he'd fall asleep. So like the horse would come in and see what we were doing, and one day though, he was doing it, and then he fell asleep, and I heard a pop, and
oh my God.
And the rope grabbed, and so he stopped a few inches from the ground. But just the vision of his face in that moment, the shock, I was just like, you know what? You can cuss me all you want. I've got that in my brain now.
I'm going to put on a drip.
Yeah. I'm going to paint it.
Yeah, I'm going to paint it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So coming to my last question now. Obviously, the youth or the young artists who are watching this, what message would you have for them? Or who are thinking to start a I'm not going to say career, or at least have some interest and wanted to get into the artistry. So, what message would you give to them?
I think obviously starting and getting excited about it, but learning a little bit about it, I think helps inspire you to want to become, you know, um, but the thing is it's something that you do for yourself, and it's a way of self-expression. And some people just do a lot more self-expressing than other people, and it does become a profession, but it's always, you're wanting to either show people what you saw, like people take pictures on vacation,
Yep.
or you walk in and you see the morning light on, some fruit, and you're like, wow,
Yep.
that's extraordinary. And it's having that intimate moment with these intimate moments. I think it just allows for your sensitivities to become more acute. And I think the world needs to be a little more sensitive. So I would, especially in the time now that all of the arts programs are being shut down, I think it's, AI will do everything for us, but
Do you think that the AI can put the motions in the picture? But when the painter is painting with your
oh,
hands and having thoughts in mind, and
I think that they can think that they can do that, but I don't think anything can truly replicate the human
I agree
brain,
with I
especially
agree.
that one of an artist.
I agree with you. Yeah, that's why I asked you.
Thank you.
Nice talking
Thank
to
you.
you, and it is really pleasure. Learned a lot about you. So once again, appreciate that.
Thank you.
Every artist has a story, and today we had the privilege of hearing Grant's, a journey shaped by passion, persistence, and the power of creativity. From childhood memories to future dreams, his art speaks not only through color and form, but through the life behind it. It's a reminder that every brushstroke carries a piece of artist's soul. As a token of appreciation for Grant, I invite you to explore and support his incredible work by visiting his website. The website link is in the vlog description. So, if you are an artist, wherever you are in the world, and you have a story to share, I would love to hear it. Because your voice matters, your journey matters, and the world deserves to see the beauty you bring to it. And now it's time to say goodbye till the next time.